Space was cold, dark, and endless. But Sector X9 was something worse. No one went there. No one came back. It was a cursed place, whispered about in fear across hundreds of planets. Maps didn't even name it anymore. Pilots called it the Graveyard Sector. Ships that entered vanished. Entire fleets disappeared without a trace. Some said it was a black hole. Others believed an ancient war weapon was still alive there. But most feared something else, something that moved in shadows, something that hunted. Captain Trells was a Zarnian smuggler, fast-talking and greedy. He didn't believe in ghost stories. Sector X9 is just empty space. He laughed as his old ship, the Silent Prophet, drifted closer. His crew, a mix of aliens, didn't laugh with him. The navigator, a young Loxery with shaking hands, begged to turn around. "Please, Captain, the stories. They're not just stories." Trells scoffed. He saw an empty route, one that would help him skip the Galactic patrol. He wanted faster delivery and bigger profits. Then everything changed. First, the lights flickered. Ship systems, fine seconds ago, began to fail. Oxygen alarms screamed. The engines died. They were drifting now, pulled by something unseen. Trells tried to speak, but his voice cracked. The screen in front of him went black, then showed a strange red symbol. It pulsed like a heartbeat. That's when the screaming began. Something hit the ship. Not a missile. Not a laser. Something. Alive. The hull dented from the outside, like a giant fist pressing in. Then claws. Sharp, long, glowing claws tore through steel like paper. The crew ran. Some hid. One tried to shoot. His laser vanished in midair as if space itself swallowed it. Captain Trells saw it just for a second. Two glowing eyes in the dark. No face, no shape, just eyes and teeth. The thing didn't roar. It didn't speak. It moved like smoke and shadows, tearing the ship apart in seconds. Then it was gone. Only one escape pod launched. Inside, a single survivor bloody. Shaking, his mind half broken, the pod drifted to the nearest station, Outpost Veganine. The survivor, mechanic named Pill, was brought into the medical bay. Doctors tried to calm him, but he just kept whispering. "It saw me. It saw me." The Galactic Council got the report. A meeting was called at once. High-ranking aliens of every kind sat in silence as Pill's footage played on the screen. The last moments of the Silent Prophet. Darkness claws, glowing red eyes. Screams cut short. "This confirms it," said High Commander Ralzek, his voice low. "The beast is real, and it's awake again." The room froze. Some stood. One fainted. Even the bravest warriors of the galaxy had heard the legends. This thing didn't just kill, it erased. It destroyed planets, ended armies. Weapons didn't stop it. Logic didn't touch it. It wasn't an animal. It was hunger given shape. The question wasn't what it was anymore. The question was, who could stop it? Then, from the corner of the room, a human stood up. He was tall, broad, with a long coat and a scar across his face. He looked bored. All others panicked. He chewed gum. Slowly, calmly, "I'll go," he said. Every alien turned to him. Someone laughed nervously. "This isn't a job for one man," a senator said. "We need fleets. We need the human." Didn't wait. He walked up to the screen showing the beast's red eyes. He looked at it, then he grinned, and he licked his lips. The room went silent. Ralzek stared at him. "You're serious?" The human nodded. "Very. Why? Do you even understand what that thing is?" The human leaned closer to the screen. "I don't care what it is. I just want to see if it tastes like chicken." Nobody laughed. The council didn't know whether to feel insulted or terrified. But one thing was clear: the human wasn't joking. He was already choosing his weapons, and he was smiling. The Galactic Council wasn't used to seeing humans in their chambers, especially not like this. The man who stepped forward looked more like a street brawler than a hero. His hair was messy, his boots muddy, and his coat had burn marks. A laser pistol hung at his side, but it was clear he didn't rely on it. His eyes were sharp, calm. To calm for a man who had just volunteered to hunt the most feared creature in the galaxy. His name was Briggs. No rank. It's no army. No backup. Just Briggs. The council showed him everything they had. Videos of destroyed worlds, broken ships, and long-dead soldiers. One file showed a planet-wide emergency signal cut off mid-scream. Another showed a floating fleet, hundreds of ships, suddenly vanish from radar. The beast left no signs, only silence. The room was quiet as the images ended. Most beings looked away, and one senator cried quietly, but Briggs. He leaned back in his chair and gave a small laugh. "Looks fun," he said. Ralzek, the High Commander, stood slowly. "You think this is a joke?" Briggs looked him in the eyes. "No, I just don't scare easy." The council didn't know what to do with him. No one had ever asked to face the beast alone. Some thought he was insane. Others thought he was just bluffing for fame. But Ralzek had seen many warriors in his life. He had led battles. He knew fear, and he didn't see any in this human's eyes. "Why you?" Ralzek asked. Briggs paused for a second. Then he said, "Because no one else will do it." That was the end of the discussion. In the following days, he prepared for the mission. The council gave him access to their best gear. Briggs ignored most of it. He picked a simple plasma blade, a modified rifle, and a strange box full of Earth-made tools. He packed a bag with dried food, water, and one bottle of hot sauce. When asked if he needed a squad, he shook his head. More people just mean more funerals. When asked what ship he wanted, he pointed to an old war cruiser in the hangar. It was half-rusted and hadn't flown in years. "She's got character," Briggs said. The engineers shook their heads in disbelief, but they fixed it anyway. While others watched in fear, he climbed aboard the ship and set a course Sector X9. No one else had dared go there in years. The space around it was quiet. No patrols, no signals. Just blackness. Briggs looked out the window as stars stretched around him. He lit a small cigar and placed it between his teeth. He whispered to himself, "Time to meet the monster." Inside the ship, a recording device blinked. Briggs turned it on. "This is Briggs," he said. "Heading into the graveyard sector. No backup. No plans. Just guts. If you're hearing this, well, either I'm dead or that thing is." Then he smiled again. His ship entered Sector X9 like a pebble dropping into a black sea. No alarms, no lights, just silence. A few hours passed, then the stars outside the window began to disappear one by one. Like something was eating the sky. He didn't flinch. Instead, he stood up, grabbed his blade, and walked to the back of the ship. The beast was waiting. He could feel it. It wasn't just a creature. It was something old, something wrong, something that hated everything alive. But Briggs wasn't like the others. He didn't come to run. He came to hunt. And if the legends were true, if this thing really did eat planets, then he wanted to see how it tasted. He stepped toward the airlock. Blade on his back, gun in hand. The lights flickered, the shadows moved, and Briggs, he just licked his lips again. Night had come to the dead planet, but it felt worse than night. There were no stars above on the thick black clouds that didn't move. The ground didn't feel solid anymore. It felt like it was breathing. Briggs sat near a small fire outside. His ship, sharpening his blade with slow, steady hands. His eyes were calm, but he was alert. Something had changed. Since the moment he threw that flash bomb inside the beast's cave, the air had felt heavier. The planet was too quiet now. Even the wind had stopped. It wasn't peace. It was the silence before a storm. He felt it in his bones. The beast was watching. His ship's sensors stopped working an hour ago. Lights flickered. Cameras turned off. Even his emergency beacon refused to send signals. He wasn't surprised. He had expected this. Beast didn't like to be touched. Now it was angry. Briggs smiled to himself. He reached into his bag and pulled out a piece of jerky. As he chewed, he looked into the shadows around him. Black shapes moved just at the edge of his vision. They never came closer. Not yet. He knew the game. The beast didn't attack right away. Played with its food. He took a deep breath and spoke to the dark. You gonna keep hiding all night? Or are you gonna say hello? No answer. Just silence. Then the fire went out. Not from wind, not from water. It just died. Briggs didn't move. He heard a sound, a soft whisper, like cloth. Dragging across stone, stood up slowly, gripping his blade. His night goggles turned on, but the screen stayed black. The darkness wasn't natural. It ate light. Then a voice spoke again. Close, very close. Why aren't you afraid? Briggs turned, fast. Still nothing. He replied without fear. Gus, I've seen worse. A laugh, soft and broken, echoed all around him. You lie, the voice said. There is nothing worse than me. Briggs grinned. You've never been to Earth, have you? Suddenly, the ground behind him cracked open. A shape exploded from it, thin and made of moving shadows. Red eyes burned in the middle of the dark mass. Briggs rolled to the side just in time. A claw slammed into the spot where he stood, crushing the rock like paper. He fired his rifle, but the bullets passed through smoke. The thing rushed at him again fast, too fast for something so big. He dodged barely and swung his blade. The plasma edge cut through part of the shadow, and the creature hissed in pain. A small splash of glowing blue hit the ground. Briggs smiled wider. Gotcha, the beast growled. It sounded like 10 animals, crying at once. It disappeared into the ground again, vanishing into the stone. The air returned to silence. Briggs stood still, breathing hard but steady. He wasn't scared. He was excited. He whispered to himself, so it does bleed. That means it can die. Hours passed. He didn't sleep. He set traps around his ship. Motion mines, noise sensors, chemical alarms. Nothing worked. Yes, the beast moved like it was part of the planet itself. Every time he blinked, something changed. A new mark on the wall, a new set of footprints, another scratch on his armor. It was trying to break him. He knew this tactic. Earth had monsters too, human ones. It's the kind that tried to win by fear before the fight even started. Briggs wasn't easy to break. Inside his ship, he looked at an old photo stuck to the wall. A small girl smiled in the picture, her eyes full of light. He touched it softly. I'll finish this, he said quietly. For you, there was a reason he had come. Not just to hunt the beasts, not just for glory. Years ago, his daughter had been on a colony ship, one that vanished in Sector X9. No wreckage was ever found. No signals. Just silence. He believed she was dead. Now he knew why. The beast didn't just kill. It took. It consumed. But not this time. This time it had made a mistake. It let a human walk into its world. And humans, especially the broken ones, were the most dangerous creatures. In the universe, the next morning came without sunlight. The sky was still black, the air still heavy. Briggs stood outside his ship, staring at the mountain of wrecked ships in the distance. He didn't sleep. He didn't need to. His blood was boiling now. The beast had bled last night. At one moment told him everything he needed to know. It could be hurt, which meant it could be killed. He walked back to the cave, this time with something new in his hand, a small round device no bigger than a baseball. He called it a bite bomb. It was made from Earth tech mixed with alien parts, designed to explode only when swallowed. He had made it in the ship overnight, and now he planned to test it. Inside the cave, the silence returned. The walls still pulsed with heat like a beating heart. Bones covered the floor, and the strange whispering sound returned, but softer now. The beast wasn't playing anymore. It was waiting. Briggs walked into the center of the dark chamber and stopped. He opened a bag of dried meat and casually tossed. One piece to the floor. Hungry, he asked. No answer. Ouch! Just a cold wind brushing past his neck. He pulled out the bomb and wrapped it in the meat. Then he placed it on a rock and stepped back. Minutes passed. Then the shadows shifted. A long, black tendril slid across the ground. It picked up the meat and pulled it into the dark. A crunch followed, then silence. Briggs smiled and pressed the trigger. A loud, sharp bang echoed through the cave. The rock walls shook. Black mist flew across the room and the beast screamed. It wasn't just noise. It was pain, real pain. The ground cracked beneath Briggs' feet. Sharp claws shot out of the floor, swiping at him. He jumped back, fired his rifle, and ran. The beast roared again, louder this time. It didn't care about hiding anymore. It charged out of the shadows, its full form now visible. It wasn't made of just smoke. It had a body long black and covered in dark red plates like armor. Its head was huge, shaped like a hammerhead, with too many eyes and teeth that didn't stop. Briggs stood his ground. The monster roared again. He threw a second bomb, this time at its leg. A blast of blue blood splashed across the cave wall. The beast cried out, the noise so strong it made Briggs' ears bleed. But he didn't fall. He just shouted back, "That's right. You feel that. That's what pain feels like." The beast charged forward in rage. Claws tore into the ground, teeth snapped like steel traps. It moved fast, faster than anything that big should move. Briggs rolled to the side, pulled out his blade and slashed at one of the legs. The plasma edge cut deep, burning through the thick armor. More blood poured out. The beast screamed again. It hit him with its tail, sending him flying into the cave wall. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. His vision blurred. Blood ran down his face, but he didn't stop. He stood back up and laughed. "You're not a god," he said. "You're just a big, ugly animal." The beast looked at him now with rage, but also with confusion. It had never seen prey fight like this. It's never seen someone get hit that hard and keep coming. Briggs took out his last bomb. Bigger than the others. More dangerous, he shouted at the beast. "Come on then." One last bite. The monster roared and lunged forward, mouth wide open. Briggs waited until the last second, then he threw the bomb. Straight into its throat. It swallowed without thinking. Briggs dove behind a rock and covered his head. The explosion was massive. The cave shook. Dust and stone fell from the ceiling. A fireball lit the darkness for a moment, and the beast's scream filled the air again. But this time it didn't echo. This time it ended. When the smoke cleared, the giant body of the beast lay on the ground, still breathing, but slower. Hurt. Badly. Briggs stood, limping, bleeding, but smiling. He looked at the glowing blue blood that soaked the floor and whispered to himself, "It bleeds. That's all I need." He turned toward the exit, blade in. Hannon said the one thing no one in the galaxy had ever dared to say before, "I'm coming back tomorrow." Because the beast wasn't dead yet, but now it was afraid. The next day, the ground still smoked where the beast had fallen. His huge body was gone, now dragged deep back into the cave, leaving behind a thick trail of glowing blue blood. Briggs stood at the entrance, shoulders sore, ribs cracked, face bruised, but his eyes were sharp. He had slept only 2 hours. That was enough. His body was human, but his will was not. He had tasted the fight. He wanted more. Inside the ship, Briggs sat on a metal box and studied the blood sample he had collected. It moved like it was alive, crawling across the glass like tiny blue worms. It hissed when exposed to light. He grinned. "It hates light," he said to himself. That gave him an idea. He built 3 light bombs, small devices designed to explode with flash and heat, brighter than the sun for just a few seconds. He also upgraded his blade. Plasma was now tuned to a higher level, hotter and louder. The human wasn't just hunting now. He was evolving. When he returned to the mountain of crushed ships, something was different. The air smelled strange, rotten, old, like the planet itself was dying. Then he saw them figures moving slowly. In the distance, he raised his gun. They were shadows, 4 of them, walking on 2 legs, like humans. But they weren't human. As they stepped closer, Briggs saw their faces. Twisted. Wrong. Not alive, but not fully dead either. Their skin was cracked, their eyes glowing blue, and they moved with the same smooth, silent steps as the beast. He understood immediately. These were copies. Puppets. The beast had made them. He fired. One shadow went down, but didn't stay down. Stood again, bones clicking back into place. Another ran at him fast. Briggs dropped his gun and pulled his blade, swung hard, cutting through its chest. The blue blood sprayed across his armor, burning slightly. The puppet screamed like the beast. He kicked it back, then threw one of the light bombs. A blast of pure white lit the area. All 4 copies screamed in pain, covering their faces. One of them exploded on the spot, its body unable to handle. The light, Briggs breathed heavily. His heartbeat was fast, but steady. "So you don't like that, huh?" he muttered. He killed the remaining 3 with clean blade strikes. Their bodies melted into black dust, floating away in the wind. Then silence again. But he knew the beast had been watching. "It's not just muscle," Briggs said aloud. "It's smart. To daps." He walked toward the cave again, but this time it felt like he was being invited. The walls were no longer just stone. Strange shapes had grown from the eyes, claws, even mouths, all watching him. Some whispered. Some laughed. Briggs ignored them. He walked into the central chamber again. The bones had been moved, stacked like a throne. Sitting above them, glowing in the dark, was the beast. But it was changed. Its wounds were still healing, glowing with soft blue light. It was smaller now, more compact, like it had reshaped. Itself for speed, its red eyes were focused on Briggs. It didn't speak, neither did he. They both charged. The battle was fast, brutal, claws versus blade, shadows versus light. The beast tried to wrap around him, but Briggs rolled, stabbed, and flashed another bomb. The light slowed the creature down. It screamed again, but now its voice was filled with anger. Briggs slashed deep into its shoulder. Blue blood poured. Out. The beast spun and struck him across the chest, throwing him into a wall. Rocks fell. Pain shot through his back. He coughed, spit blood, then stood again. He laughed, died. "Is that all you've got?" The beast stopped. It tilted its head, and for the first time, it looked confused. Briggs stood tall, even as his body ached. "You think you're the only monster here?" he said. "You were born in darkness. I was born in war," the beast growled. Briggs pulled out his last light bomb. He didn't throw it. He swallowed it. The beast moved fast, trying to stop him, but it was too late. Briggs smiled wide. "If you want it, come get it." And the beast lunged. Briggs lay on the cold ground of the cave, half buried in rubble, his ribs cracked, his armor torn open, and his body soaked in sweat and blue blood. Smoke still rose from the deep tunnel behind him, where the light bomb had exploded. His vision was blurry, but he was still alive. The beast had been faster this time, smarter, but Briggs had been willing to take a bigger risk. He hadn't swallowed the real bomb. It had been a bluff, a trick to pull the monster close enough. He had thrown the real device at the last second and dived for cover. It worked. The chamber had collapsed, part of the beast's body trapped under fallen stone. But it wasn't dead yet. He could still hear it breathing, deep and slow, a sound like thunder buried in the earth. Briggs pulled himself to his feet, coughing hard, and limped back toward his ship. The night sky outside was glowing now. Sector X9 was changing. The air shimmered like heat waves, and the stars flickered like they were watching. The ground felt unstable. Something was coming. Something big. Briggs looked up and saw something strange. Ships in orbit. Not enemy ships. Not war fleets. Observation. Crafts, small, fast, sent by the Galactic Council. They had come to watch. They didn't send help. They didn't send weapons. They just wanted to see if the legend would end. Inside one of those ships, High Commander Ralzek stood before a screen, watching the human limp across the ash-covered land. He said nothing, neither did the others. No one could believe the beast had been wounded so badly. No one could understand why the human was still alive. Back on the planet, Briggs reached his ship, entered the code, and collapsed into the pilot chair. His hands were shaking. He poured water into his mouth, winced, and laughed quietly. His mind replayed every second of the fight. The beast had stopped talking. It had stopped mocking. That meant fear. The thing was ancient, yes, but it had never faced someone who didn't run. It didn't know what to do with a predator like him. Briggs patched himself up with painkillers and glue, then loaded new weapons. His supplies were running low. One rifle left, half a blade. One last explosive. He didn't care. It'd come too far to stop. As he prepped for the final round, a new message flashed on his ship's screen. A council transmission. Voice only. Ralzek's voice. Briggs, this is the High Commander. You've done enough. Bubba. We'll seal Sector X9 forever. Briggs stared at the speaker, then laughed bitterly. Now you care? He said. You came to watch me die. You don't get to tell me when to stop. That silence on the other end. Then Ralzek spoke again. We'll give you whatever you want. Money, a new ship, honor. You've already become a legend, Briggs replied with only one sentence. I didn't come here to survive. Then he shut the comms off. He stepped out one last time, holding his weapon in one hand and a flare in the other. He lit the flare and raised it high. The smoke rose into the air. It was not a signal for help. It was a challenge, and the beast answered. A roar shook the mountain. Fire burst from cracks in the ground. The sky turned red like the planet was bleeding. The beast rose from the rubble, more twisted than before. Part of its body now burned. Broken, but moving. Its eyes locked on the human, its teeth bared. No words now, just rage, just war. The final battle had begun. Briggs didn't run. He took one step forward, then another. He wiped blood from his face and smiled through cracked lips. Let's finish this, he whispered. And the two monsters, one made of darkness, one made of war, rushed at each other one last time. The ground split beneath their feet as Briggs and the beast collided in a storm of claws. Fire and fury. The final battle shook the planet itself. Rocks shattered. The sky boiled red. Dust covered the stars. The beast roared with rage, swiping with its long black claws, fast as lightning. But Briggs ducked, rolled, and struck with everything he had. His plasma blade burned white-hot, slicing into the beast's chest, sending fountains of glowing blue blood into the air. The monster screamed, shaking the mountains with its voice, but still, it fought. Its tail smashed into Briggs, knocking him through a jagged wall of bone. He hit the ground hard, blood pouring from his mouth, but he stood again. He always stood, charged back, firing his last rifle shot straight into the beast's eye. The creature stumbled, blinded for a second, and Briggs leaped onto its back, driving his broken blade deep between its armored plates. The beast screamed again, spinning wildly, trying to throw him off, but he held on. He climbed up its spine, step by step, like a man climbing death itself. Around them, fire rose from cracks in the ground. The planet groaned like it was about to collapse. The watchers in the ships above fell silent. No one dared speak. The legend was ending, and history was being written with blood and fire. At the top of the beast's neck, Briggs pulled out the last explosive, small, red hot, a corebuster. One of Earth's ugliest toys. He shoved it into the hole he'd carved with his blade and shouted one word as loud as he could. Smile. Then he jumped. The bomb exploded. A ball of white fire shot into the sky. The beast let out a roar so loud that ships in orbit recorded the sound as a wave of data spikes and static. Then the roar stopped. Everything stopped. The sky turned black. The mountain of ships cracked down the middle. Silence. For a long time, nothing moved. The fire cooled, the wind returned. And then, from the dust, a shape appeared, limping, bleeding, burned, but walking. It was him, Briggs. His armor was gone. His weapons were gone. One arm hung uselessly at his side. His face was burned, his lips split, but he was alive, still breathing, still walking. In his other hand, he dragged something behind him. Beast's skull, broken and cracked. The last piece of a nightmare that had haunted the galaxy for centuries. He dropped it at the base of the mountain, looked up at the sky, and raised one bloody fist. The council ships saw it. Across 100 star systems, people cheered. In quiet rooms, old warriors cried. Soam refused to believe it. Dated. But the data, the footage, and the silence from Sector X9 proved it. The beast was dead. The human had won. Briggs returned to his ship, barely able to stand. He sat in the pilot's seat, laughing weakly, coughing between each breath. He looked at the cracked photo of his daughter taped to the wall and touched it gently. "You can rest now," he whispered. The engines came online. Slowly, painfully, the ship rose into the sky. The council tried to contact him again. Dozens of messages, honors, medals, offers of anything he wanted. But Briggs didn't answer. He had done what no one else could. He didn't need thanks. He didn't need a statue. He just wanted quiet. As his ship disappeared into the stars, the broken planet behind him began to collapse. The death of the beast had unbalanced the land. Sector X9 would soon vanish into fire and rubble, a final grave for monsters. And above it all, the galaxy remained silent. Because for the first time in history, the thing that had hunted them had been hunted in return and killed by a human. By a man who smiled at death and licked his lips when the galaxy trembled. The legend of the beast was over. The legend of Briggs was just beginning.